What basic children's age level fact did you only find out embarrassingly later in life? I lived in a desert most of my life. No snow. Before my recent experience, I had spent maybe a total of 5 days of my life in snow, and the snow I was in was incredibly light. Because of this, I always pictured snow as eternally white and ethereal, like in all the cartoons I'd watched as a kid. Went to spend time with my partner's family back in the Midwest in early February. I was absolutely enchanted on my first day of the 2-week stint. Then I watched what happened as the snow stayed around, and I got to see black ice and the nasty grey/brown snow blocks on the side of the road. I suppose I should have known snow got dirty and tracked over and nasty, but I didn't. Robbed the childhood wonder and whimsy right from under my nose. I was baking a cake in my dorm for my 19th birthday. My friends were running around and being loud, so I yelled at them to stop because I did not want them to ruin the cake. They looked at me like I had two heads, so I had to explain that my siblings and I were always taught that making loud noises or running around a kitchen when something was baking would make it fall. I was surprised they had never learned that baking rule. Yeah, turns out that was made up to stop kids from running and being loud for a couple hours when baking was being done. I called my mom up to ask her about it, and both she and my grandma were just as shocked as I was to find out it was a myth. So apparently at least 3 generations have believed and followed that rule. My mother used to feed me dark green lettuce as salads. I loved it, even when I was a kid. I think I was 17, and I had a friend over for dinner. Asked my mom for seconds of dark green lettuce. Friend looks at me like I'm a fucking idiot. Oh, you mean spinach? D-E-U-R-D-E-U-R-D-E-U-R. Moms had been fooling me my whole life. Not me, but in college my buddy asked me how to spell smorning because his phone didn't recognize it as a word. He then goes on to say, you know, like this morning. I ask, do you mean this morning? I thought robins, the birds, came out of hibernation at Christmas time because that's when you see them on cards and stuff in the UK. I did not realize for a very long time that you in fact see them all the time, like normal birds. I was in my mid-30s before I realized that the turn your head part of turn your head and cough was so that you didn't cough on the damn doctor. I always thought it must have flexed some particular muscle or something. I don't know. To my credit, I'm a man and I don't think I've ever had to do that. One day I had a light bulb moment. Pickling is a process. You can pickle anything. So what are pickles? I was gonna blow so many minds with this question. Turns out, it is cucumbers. And everyone on the planet knew that, except me. For years I had been removing toast from the toaster by sticking a butter knife in and picking it out. It wasn't until I was 20 that my girlfriend freaked out when I started doing it that I learned metal in toaster equals bad. Guess I'd been pretty lucky. Not me, but my father once stole into the woods during a family camping trip and put marshmallows on a bush so it looked like they grew on it. My sister made it to post-secondary HORTICULTURE* before she wised up. I always thought the term, the coast is clear was, the ghost is clear transparent. My great-grandfather had half a pinky on his left hand and always said it was because he liked to use it to sop up leftover pancake syrup and had worn it down to a nub. This made sense to me because I'd seen him do that plenty of times. I was so embarrassed to be *I in college before I realized that was ridiculous and finally asked him what really happened. In reality, he and my uncle had been working in their blacksmith shop and my uncle accidentally brought a sledgehammer down on his pinky. He didn't want to traumatize me with the truth as a kid, but by the time I asked, I was more than old enough to handle 80 pounds. That Alaska ice nut an island with a weirdly straight border. I did not realize a handicap sign was a person in a wheelchair for a long time. I had always thought it was just a neat little symbol, kind of like a treble clef. As a kid I used to think the black market was an actual place like a bazaar where all the criminals would regularly meet up. When I was 4 or 5, my mother brought me home a balloon one day. Plain blue balloon with helium. I accidentally let it go, and it flew away. Being little, I was devastated. Later that night she comes back from somewhere and tells me she was at the gas station and miraculously, my balloon just came floating by. Being a kid, I was thrilled and totally believed it. So fast forward 20 plus years. I am on a date and we stop to get gas and we see a balloon floating by the gas station. Probably had not thought of that story again in all that time. So I start telling my date the story about how I had a balloon fly away, and then my mother found the very same balloon at a gas station, and then as I am saying it out loud I realize, too late to not look like an idiot, that of course it was not the same freaking balloon. I have never seen someone laugh so hard. It only recently occurred to me, I'm my 5th decade, that watch where you're going means look in the direction you are walking, and it's not just something to say to someone who bumps into you. I truly believed that for the longest time, that hair grew from the ends of the strands, not from the scalp. When I was 13 I asked my friend who had dyed her hair what she was going to do when the ends grew her natural color. Did not hear the end of it. My stupidity still pains me to this day. I thought until the age of about 21 that when companies had S next to their name, it was asterisk ESTIMATED asterisk, that companies were started around that time. It was only when I voiced my disgust profoundly to my then partner that it was ridiculous, that no one knew when these companies were formed, and why were they all estimated. She just stared at me blankly for a moment and just went. Established. Penny dropped real hard. That little thing that dangles at the back of your throat, I snort your tonsils. I was 23 when I learned I was allergic to apples. Someone was complaining about their throat closing up after smoking, and I responded with yeah like, when you eat an apple. Oh, you can imagine how the conversation went from there. Depends what you consider a child, I suppose. But in my mid-20s I moved up the food chain from server to bartender at the restaurant I worked at. Someone order a Roman Coke. I didn't know what was in a Roman Coke, so I told him so but that I would figure it out. I figured out that what I had been understanding as a Roman Coke my whole drinking life was in fact a rum and coke that I knew how to make. A few years ago I was searching for different classical pieces in Spotify, getting frustrated that every version Spotify had of works by composers like Beethoven and Bach were covers performed by modern orchestras. My idiot brain was looking for original recordings from the 18th century until it finally realized how dumb that was. Not me, but a friend of mine didn't learn that Martin Luther and Martin Luther King Jr. weren't the same person until college. A friend of mine had a mom that would make sure there was an inch of room for his feet to grow whenever he got new shoes as a kid. He was in his 20s and trying on new shoes and asked the salesperson if there was room at the tip. They looked up at him like he had a tick growing out of his forehead and said, "You don't need room, you're done growing." Oof. Space heaters are so named because they heat a room, a space, not because they look like futuristic devices from outer space. Donna would add dish soap to the dishwasher. Found that one out at 26. I swear it is, only because I grew up washing dishes by hand. Had a fun time cleaning that mistake. I am from Pennsylvania. When they do the nightly lottery drawings on TV, they always add a reminder at the end. ARA benefits older Pennsylvanians every day. So, naturally, I just assumed that a lot of elderly people won the lottery. When I was a teen I made a joke to my dad about him turning 50 and having a better shot at winning the lottery, and he looked at me like I was nuts. Turns out that ARA benefits older Pennsylvanians every day. Means that the lottery is a fundraiser for senior services, and here I was thinking that it meant grandma was winning millions on her scratch-offs. My mom used to tell me the car does not start if the seat belts are not buckled or a vertical bar. Did not know that was not a real feature until I was 22. My 31-year-old girlfriend thought islands don't touch the bottom of the ocean. I went to lowers and in front of everyone asked for strap-ons. The correct word I was looking for was ratchets/tie downs. It took me an embarrassingly long time before I realized that when a movie had a blurb from Rolling Stone, it wasn't the Rolling Stones reviewing it. My mother told me that if you swallowed gum it would stick to your ribs. I was in my second year of college in an anatomy class when it hit me that this is not true. My cousin's name. Growing up, we'd always called her Tori, always that and nothing else. A couple years ago, well into my 20s, she's visiting and we go to a restaurant. Our waitress comes up and says, "Hi there, my name's Victoria and I'll be taking care of you." My cousin says, "Oh neat, that's my name too." I was surprised by that cause my dumbus never put together that Tori was short for Victoria. Thought the former leader of North Korea was Kim Jong-il for an embarrassingly long time. I somehow managed to avoid hearing his name said out loud. Or, written in a serif font, apparently. My roommate was 21 when he learned that cows have fur. He thought they were just skin. Edit. Yes, technically cows have hair and not fur. Thank you for the great laughs and the awards. This blew up, and my roommate is not talking to me. I incorrectly said Areth Bristavito instead of the gist of it. I used that phrase in conversation for years until one day, when I was nearly 30, got corrected by a Jehovah's Witness that came to my door and asked me if I ever read the Bible. I smugly replied I got the brist of it.